Hello.
Hey, how's it going, man?
Good, good. How about yourself?
I'm doing good. I'm Reza of College Jewel Saints, and with me tonight is Mark at I_Barnabas. It is good to have you back, man. And tonight we're discussing the
Oh,
Phoenix arc.
oh yeah, yeah. It's been a long time. So how's things been going? And happy anniversary to you, by the way.
Thanks. Been going good. Kids go back to school Tuesday, so I love them, but I'm
Oh,
excited. I'm excited for them to get out the house.
good deal, good
Yeah,
deal.
but how are you? How's the family, man?
Oh, they're doing great. Everybody's just a little weary for the holidays, but it's just been a crazy time and stuff. But things are kind of starting to settle down now. So I was so happy that I had a chance to come back.
That's sipping too much blood out of the coffee cup, man. That's what that is.
Right, exactly.
Goodness. But so we're here to discuss Phoenix Arc, but so Diana Mullally plays the Phoenix, and what were your thoughts about her when you first saw her walk in? And then, this is towards the beginning episode still.
I was really excited because I had always heard about. Everyone was telling me you need to watch the Phoenix Arc. You need to watch the Phoenix Arc, and um, something about her was just very, very strange and mysterious. And I heard a lot about her as compared to the other characters, Barnabas and everyone. So um, seeing her, there was something right away. There was something unsettling about her, but I really enjoyed it, and thought she was very very weird, but in a good way. So I really enjoyed it. Feel the tension as soon as she came back on and came on the screen, and I was thinking this is going to be a good story. I'm getting some good vibes off this so far. How about you?
I'll tell you who sold this for me, and it was two people. One, Sam Evans, the character of Sam Evans,
Oh
and
yeah,
I don't know what it is about the Phoenix arc, the beginning episodes, like with her. For whatever reason, maybe it's just me. The way they light those episodes when she's on there, it seems different. It seems almost like they're every time they light up for her, like they put the lighting on her, it's like it's brighter for some reason. And I think it's if it is right, I think it's done on purpose because of her character, because of what she is.
right. And I always loved when she used her power, like her telekinesis, that the lights would shine. It's like everything would fade out, but the lights would shine on her eyes, a lot like Bela Lugosi's Dracula
Right.
when he was, using his powers to hypnotize and everything. It really accented a lot of her whole aura and everything about her. You're very right. Everything, the lighting and the things were very, very different when she was on screen.
I love the fact that Sam, goes to the Blue Whale and phones up Roger. I got to talk to you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That was it meant a whole lot of trouble for them. That she had returned and everything was coming full circle for Roger. With Bert Devlin returning and then out of nowhere Laura appears. So I mean, this guy just couldn't catch a break in those beginning episodes.
No, no, it seemed like everywhere, especially like after Bill Malloy's death and during it, everywhere Sam Evans turned, he was in trouble. He was in the hot seat. I agree
Mm-hmm.
with you. What were your thoughts on Laura seemingly being the one to expose Bert to Carolyn in many ways? They kept warning because in the beginning episodes they kept warning Carolyn, "Oh, he's just using you."
Right. Uh, I mean, it was very soap opera style and everything the way that they did it. But I liked that it took Laura to really see. Um, to show Carolyn how Burke was, and how I loved how um, there was a deeper element, seeing that Laura was back in the picture, um, that Burke suspected that David was his child.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that when Laura returned, that was something that Burke wasn't expecting. And I really thought that was a good ploy, where it started bringing that mystery where Burke had always suspected and Roger had suspected that David wasn't really his, and you just there a lot of the relationships, the on and in off again got really layered and a lot deeper at that point, just in my opinion.
Yeah, Roger sort of questions this long before Laura shows up too. Right about the time after the bleeder valve is removed and they find out it's David, I do believe he questions, is David really his? And Liz gets pissed at him for it.
Oh yeah.
You're right.
Yeah. He gets pretty grumpy too.
Right. It's the interactions are great for the characters and just the actresses and actresses who played them. What were your thoughts on just what do you feel, because this isn't really, although it is the appearance of Roger's wife, technically it's not the real Laura Collins.
Right. That's a really good question, and I feel like it's one that there's so many answers to on what you feel like Laura really is. And from a horror standpoint, vampires, werewolves, and all these other creatures have well-known weaknesses. Freddy Krueger, fire, all that stuff. But how do you really stop a phoenix? And it's just something that you can't really. I don't know. It would be something hard to learn how to stop, and she plays it so well and hides herself so well. I think she's a great adversary and a great foe. And it's hard to think of what Laura really is. Is she? We know that there's something supernatural about her. Is she possessed by an evil spirit? It's really hard to peg what she is, and how much how human she is. If she's half human, half phoenix. That's been something I've really had a hard time trying to peg down. It's just it can go so many different ways.
Right. For the record, I agree with you. I think there's no right or wrong way to analyze the character, especially hers, because there's so many variables here with this. I think the closest one I've come up with this, because keep in mind something me and Mark want to point out throughout the story, they explain that there's other Laura Collinses that have been the Phoenix.
Right.
Different variations. That's what Vicky uncovers because of just that. And we're going to get into that in this video, but what I deduct is the real Laura Collins, Roger's wife, did die in that fire in Phoenix.
Yeah.
And the entity that is the Phoenix took her body, took her flesh, sort of the way a shapeshifter would, but only by appearance. It's weird to sort of describe it that way, but that's the only deduction I have, because the other logic would be, well, Laura Collins agreed for the Phoenix to take her body because she promised her a son, and I just can't, because what bothers me with this is, keep in mind, Roger and Elizabeth did say that Laura was sick in a hospital long before, like way back, that his wife was sick.
In a hospital, I believe.
Yeah, and that's sort of right, and it's like, well, did that contribute to her decision? Like, if you know, what I mean, if that's the case,
Hmm.
it's again, there's so many variables to this. I agree with you.
Yeah, but that's what makes the story so fun. It's because it's something that people could chat on Twitter or at the water cooler, or playground or whatever for hours, and nobody is wrong.
Right.
I'm like you. I believe that there was something supernatural in her, like a host that lived inside her body, and that it never really died. Even though her body may have died, the spirit lived on and was reborn. Once every century, like they established in the beginning episodes,
Right.
which I think, and I've not seen. I've seen about three-fourths of Dark Shadows. I've not seen the 1897 storyline where she returns, so I think they changed that up a little bit. But as far as the beginning episodes where she came, there was a set of rules where she appeared once every century, right around the middle, and I really like that they had a little, they gave you a little bit to go on.
Yeah, I'm going to spoil this a little bit for you, but in 1897, the 1897 arc, how they change this up is what's weird is she was in Alexandria in Egypt, like in
Okay.
Alexandria, and guess who was with her? Our good pimp master himself, Mr. 007, who slept with more women than any of us will ever dream about, Quentin Collins.
Oh wow.
He was with her, and he knew she died in the fire of Alexandria. So,
Uh huh.
because he was with her,
Wow.
he left right as the fire was starting, I guess. So when she shows up in Collinwood, he's like questioning her, like he knows, like she's dead, like that, like what the hell.
Uh-huh.
But
Oh wow.
so, but when you watch it, it's crazy because you're thinking by this point, by the time she shows up, like you're sort of like, man, who haven't you slept with, dude?
Right.
Like,
Right.
but
It's like, well, I'm sorry to leave you in the fire, but I've kind of got plans for my life, so I'll see you. So
yeah, I moved on to this girl and this girl, yeah.
exactly.
Oh,
Yeah,
God.
Billy somewhere, I'm sure.
Right, right. But sorry. It's just it's we're having fun already. But
Oh yeah.
what were your thoughts on David's David Hensey just sells in this so much too, right off the bat. At first, he's been wanting his mother so much. What were your thoughts on the 180 turn once he meets this woman posing as Laura Collins?
I think David Hennessy did a fantastic job, and I'll go on record for saying I think that he is probably one of the top three child actors I've ever seen in anything, not just Dark Shadows. Um, he gives an outstanding performance, and he, um, I think the way that he could tell that something wasn't right, because David is a very perceptive child. He's very feeling. He's got a lot of his. I think his sentences are heightened,
Right.
and I think David could really sense that something wasn't right about her. And I'm going to skip ahead a little bit when Laura is about to, when she's trying to call David to her, and she's having David recite the story of the Phoenix, which I thought was very chilling.
Mm-hmm.
The way that she had him, repeat the story to her as a way to entice him to come to her. Um, when he realized what was happening, you could see him break, and he just started crying. And oh my gosh, David Hennessy was fantastic in that story.
Yeah, there's so much because his character is in the most danger of anybody. I mean,
Yeah.
we know what happens to Elizabeth, and we'll get into that. But I mean, his character goes through so much in this arc. The
Yeah.
Phoenix arc is, I dare say, very important to Dark Shadows. It's pre Barnabas. You have, there was great writing before the 1795 Barnabas. This was it. This was part of that great writing, those early years. You had this woman just, I agree with you. David Henze, he goes through so much emotion in this story because it was something I want to touch upon you with the painting that Josette makes Sam Evans paint.
Oh yeah, that first reveal of it when you see it, in its full form, just without David there, that was a scary looking portrait.
Yeah, I every time I go, I've been through the Coffin box sets like 5 times, and every time I go back to the beginning and it gets that portrait, I'm like, damn, that still looks creepy as shit.
Yeah, it does. It does, and it's very striking. Even though it's black and white, just you can kind of see, you can get a feel of like the color pattern and everything, and there's something very very striking about it, and I love how I think Sam tried to destroy it, and didn't she burn his hands?
It's weird because he destroys it like once, and then
Mm-hmm.
and he didn't want to paint it no more, but he kept paint every time he kept trying to paint something different. He paints it, and then he shows her the painting. He's like, "What does this mean?" And she's like,
Right.
"Why would you do it?" He goes, "No, what is it?" And then she burns his hands. He just wants an
Yeah.
explanation for it because he doesn't know.
Right.
But again, she's so creepy. The whole thing is creepy. I agree with you. Like the
Yeah.
portrait, Sam and her's interaction is sort of like, oh shit, this ain't gonna be good for Sam.
Right. Right. And when Victoria sees the portrait finally completed, and she sees David in Laura's arms in that portrait in the flames, that was such a great reveal. I mean, you knew it was coming to that, but to finally see it was very very surreal.
It was. It was like there's so many like protagonists here to fight the antagonist. There's Vicky, there's Josette, there's Carolyn, and they really are the main. They're like the Three Musketeers.
Yeah.
they
Right.
they just did that portrait reveal. I agree with you. It's so good, and it's like to me, it's one of the most criminally underrated things in television.
And also, we got a good introduction thanks to Frank Garner, who was Victoria's love interest. We got a good introduction to the Eagle Hill caretaker in these episodes, and oh man, he really sold that too. Laura's history, where he kept all the records and all the books, and um, he really hammed it up, and really added a lot to that storyline.
Right? Because the old guy who says, "I thought you were Ghost." They talk to me, and
Yeah,
I'm like, "Holy shit, this dude's creepy."
he is. He is. He was the ones that played the caretaker. He was by far my favorite, and he was so dramatic and had so many good lines. And was talking about people like Laura that were burned alive in their coffin. That they died by fire, and that inside their coffin were all their screams and all their pain and agony. That it was all that they had to take with them, and that if you opened the coffin, all of it would come out. And I mean, he was great. He added a lot of atmosphere and really played that up.
What did you? This is sort of really we first really get a glimpse of somewhat of Eagle Hill in a way. What did you think of it?
I liked it. I liked it felt the set was right. It felt cold. It felt lonely.
Right?
Um, I thought all the settings were right, even more than when Barnabas shows up and you keep going to the mausoleum. Um, I really liked it. Really established that gothic tone for Dark Shadows. I mean, other than the mansion and everything, I think adding the cemetery element, and they did it so well with the set design. Um, I just can't imagine Dark Shadows without Eagle Hill Cemetery. Now it's too important.
Right? Any family that has their own cemetery, that just screams creepy 101.
Yeah, mm-hmm. I agree. And where I used to live, and I grew up in West Virginia, there was a family-owned cemetery that had graves from the early 1800s, and I used to walk by there when I walked to school. So I kind of I kind of got that feeling, the same. And sometimes we would walk through the cemetery, just because we would, and we were weirdos, I guess. But I kind of got that. It brought me back to that same feeling of just like the creepy old cemeteries and different things. So I thought it added a lot of good atmosphere to the show.
Actually, where I grew up, there's a cemetery called Sylvian Heights, and my mom would take us there, and we would walk through there all the time, like because there's a trail there, and
Yeah.
so we would just walk through there all the time,
Mm-hmm.
just because it was just something we did. So
Yeah. Same.
it's not too creepy as long as no one's going there at night to doing something they shouldn't be doing.
Exactly.
You know,
Yeah.
but it's
Yeah. We lived in the mountains, so there were a lot of trails and stuff that went through there. So yeah, we that's pretty much what we were doing as well.
right. That's amazing. I like that. What were your thoughts on the introduction of Dr. Peter Guthrie?
Love Dr. Guthrie. I mean, of course, he's not as great as Professor Stokes, but I thought he was a good forerunner to a character like that. He was, um, I liked him where he was an expert in paranormal studies, and he was a smarter guy, which everyone knows in Collinsport. There's a price you pay when you get too smart.
Right.
And fortunately, he was not immune to that. But I really liked him a lot, and I liked the occult knowledge that he brought into it, where they were doing. I think they had like a séance,
Mm-hmm.
and he brought some supernatural elements that the show hadn't seen yet. So I thought he was an important part in bringing more of that to the show, where it started out just more of a mystery box. Um, with mixed in with a little bit of gothic. Dr. Guthrie really ushered that supernatural element into the show.
Yeah, it's weird because we don't get our first seance until he shows up. That's
Mm-hmm.
and that's where Vicky sort of says, I keep dreaming something's gonna happen to me," and
Right.
and it's sort of in a way. I know they had said they never planned 1795, but it sort of prophesizes what comes way later, right? Her going
Exactly.
back in time.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly right. And I'm someone that I really like, and I think it whenever I make it to that point, because my first introduction to Dark Shadows in 1996 was um, the Leviathan storyline was just starting to end, and Parallel Time was beginning. And I think once I get to the Leviathan storyline, I think I'm going to like it, because I'm someone that I like a lot of like cult horror and like a cult element in stories. And I just really think that Dr. Guthrie really brought a lot of that to the table, and I think to me he's an unsung hero, and that's not to take away from Thayer David and Professor Stokes, but I don't think that Dr. Guthrie gets the credit he deserves for bringing all that he did to the show in those early episodes.
I agree. He dies for his cause. Really, he dies for the cause in every way. The character, and
Right.
it's sort of weird because if I had to like paint the difference between Guthrie and Stokes, I would say Guthrie doesn't take the gloves off until he absolutely has to. With
Right.
Stokes, there's no kid gloves.
No, no, he's definitely the heavy hitter and the bolder of the two.
my, real quick, my favorite part with Stokes is when he's having the seance with Chris Jennings and Carolyn, and Chris Jennings like interrupts. He looks right at Chris. He is so pissed. He's like, I'm
Yeah,
interested to why you did that, Mister Jennings.
right, right. Yeah, he's definitely got a temper to him, and he's shown that in in other episodes. There's definitely something forceful about him. I guess I could say he was a lot more Type A personality, and Miss Dr. Guthrie was a little more Type B. He was more passive aggressive. I compare them as Stokes is more like Mike Tyson, and Dr. Guthrie is more like Holyfield.
I love that comparison. That is a
Yeah,
beautiful, because we're both sports fans here. That is a beautiful
yeah.
comparison. I love that. What were your thoughts on? I love the effects they had with her, with Laura's character. What were your thoughts on that?
Oh, it was really good. I mean, it really shows that you know in the beginning I thought the writers were at their best, and and that's not to take away from the Barnabas stories, but the dialogue and everything, and they were just getting started, so their budget was smaller, and I thought that what they could do on such a small budget um, was really incredible. The flame effects, um, and like you said, the way that they did the lighting on Laura,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that was really all that you needed to see that there was um, something not right about her. And like in some of the scenes where she would use like her telekinesis, and I think there were some scenes where it was um, like you could see her head, appearing in the room and watching uh, Victoria, watching David, and watching Elizabeth. Um, I thought those effects turned out pretty well, and I think they still hold up.
Yeah, they do. If you guys ever go back to the beginning episodes, we recommend this arc highly. It
Oh,
I agree with you. The head in the room, it's creepy. The music with it, it just everything clicked with Dark Shadows, especially during the Phoenix arc as well. What were your thoughts on? Here's Vicky. She's fighting. Literally, she's literally all but challenging Laura.
I thought that was good because Victoria, especially in the beginning episodes, was very very bold,
Mm.
and she didn't care to stand up to whomever it was. Roger was probably one of the most predatory characters I've ever seen in those beginning episodes, and she stood her ground. And she faced all the human monsters and stood up to them in the Collins family. And when it was time to stand up to something supernatural like Laura, she had no problems with it. And she knew that there was something about Laura, but she was going to do whatever it took to stand up to her to protect David. And I thought that really spoke a whole lot about her just as a female character, that she was bold, that she was gutsy, and if I'm saying something wrong, I'm sorry. She was very ballsy in the way that she stood up to Laura, and I thought that was really really nice seeing that kind of growth for Victoria.
I think a lot of characters that we know in horror, like, in a way are modeled after Vicky, not necessarily in look, but in style, where they're not afraid to stand up for themselves, or
Right.
stand up when they have to, and
She
or
was the girl.
right. She was the catalyst for them. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
She was the stepping stone, so to speak. And I think the one thing Alexander Isles did so well with this, with the Phoenix arc, was she showed me if she would have got the opportunity, she could have played a antagonist. And my explanation of this is simple. When she's sitting there right by Laura, and they're reading about Laura Collins, Laura Collins dying, and Vicky just says died by fire. And I'm like, oh wow.
Right, right.
Oh god. I was like, you go, girl, you go.
That's right. That's exactly right. So, and and I loved, when uh, Laura walks into, I think it was, yeah, when David brought her to the old house, and Josette's portrait was hanging up there, and there was a stare down between them. Um, I think, if I remember right, in the 1700s, wasn't she Jeremiah's first wife?
Yeah, I think that's what they were trying to say. Yeah, in a weird way. In the 1780, or sorry, 1797 episode, 1897, sorry,
Mm,
Barnabas mentions, talks to her, and he goes, were you a phoenix when I was a boy? And they were hinting, yes, she was Jeremiah's first wife.
mhm. Okay, yeah, because I remember there was a stare down between Laura, and I think Josette's portrait started glowing. Like there was, obviously some kind of history that they knew each other at some point. So I thought that was a good setup for Laura's character. That there was definitely something wrong with this chick.
Yeah, when the ghost is coming for you, especially if
Mm-hmm.
it's the last name Collins, you know you've done something wrong.
Oh yeah, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. And there was something, that she was dangerous. You could
Right.
tell that because Josette's spirit was protective of the Collins family, just like you mentioned in your last video when you were talking to John Phillip, um, that Barnabas was saying, you know, where was I? Why didn't you protect me? And Josette's spirit was protective of the family, and I think Laura was so powerful that she blocked her power somewhat, and so Josette had to give leave little breadcrumbs for them to follow to learn how to fight Laura.
Yeah, she kept leaving clues for Vicky, and I think
Mm-hmm.
a lot that's the person she chose to speak through, and I think that's where the connection with Alexander's character, Vicky and Josette, will always be. Just with they're all whether you know. I know Catherine Lee Scott is going to resemble Josette, and that's all well and good. But there's always going to be that special connection with Josette's ghost and Vicky.
Yeah, yep, I agree 100%.
What were your thoughts on just Diana's performance of the Phoenix?
I really liked that she played it unhinged,
Mm-hmm.
that she made it her own. Um, and actually, before we were talking about this, I listened to Diana Malay's interviews that were on the DVDs, and she was talking about how she really felt a strong connection and that she could kind of play herself. She said I was a new mother, or a new mother to be, and she said I really love the character, and she said and I could be um, a lot like myself. And she said the more I read the script and read the part, I was Laura Collins, and I felt like Diana Malay really sold that. And even though there have been, Lisette Anthony was Laura in the '91 series briefly, and that we had like a brief glimpse of Laura Collins' ghost in the 2012 Tim Burton movie. I just can't picture anyone else playing the Phoenix like Diana Malay did. I think she just took it and made it completely her own. And it was something, an original character that wasn't patterned after, like Frankenstein or Dracula. I think she really took something original and just ran with it. And I think that's why it's one of the most memorable and greatest storylines of the whole series.
Yeah, it really gets unsung in many ways because of, not necessarily because of Barnabas, but because of how long the Barnabas arc is. It never really ends in many ways. Where the Phoenix arc does, it ends and then it comes back later in another time. I agree with you 1000%. This arc, the Phoenix arc of Dark Shadows, is one of the best arcs ever. It's well performed. The actress Diana Malay sells her ass off.
Yes,
One
she does.
1000%. Probably, to me, in my opinion, no offense to Angelique, the second best protagonist ever, or antagonist, I should say, second best protagonist, ever, all time, is the
Yeah.
Phoenix.
Yes, she is. And I love that they kind of leave it open where, she's always taken her son with her, and I believe in um, throughout the history. You can correct me if I'm wrong, because it's been a while since I've watched those episodes. Her son was always David, right? Didn't she always take a son named David?
In the beginning episodes, yes.
Okay.
In the beginning,
All right.
now, in the beginning episodes, Mark is 1000% correct. With 1897, because the character's not named David, the character's named Jameson, because Jameson is Elizabeth's dad, but Jameson's a boy in 1897. So the character's name is Jameson because they're back in time. But
right.
In the beginning episodes, you're 1000% correct. Every boy the Phoenix took, his name was David. 1000% correct. So.
Yeah, and I really liked how they had the established lore set up where she appeared once every century.
Right.
And it kind of made me wonder, what happened, because this was the first time that she wasn't able to take, I mean, as far as I knew and what they had set up in the beginning episodes, this was the first time where she failed to have her child with her. So I really think that there's good potential for storytelling to have her arc continue. I guess to find out what happened to her after that happened. Did she reappear, or because she wasn't able to bring her son with her? What happened? I think there's a lot more storytelling for Laura that can be done.
I would love for them to show a bird flying to Earth, a bird of fire, the Phoenix, coming through the atmosphere, and then as it's through the atmosphere, the flames go out, and it just looks like a red bird, a red phoenix, or an orange-looking reddish phoenix, and it just lands next to these other birds, and the birds fly away out of fear.
Yeah.
And the birds looking at the humans, looking to take a form.
Right. That would be good. And I really feel like there's not enough about Laura out there. There's so much more that can be told about her. And it's possible for her to be redeemed because of the horrible things she's done. Because you think of shows in the 50s and 60s. This was a time where TV was heavily censored, and a lot of it was happy, feel good stuff, and they toned back a lot of themes that you could maybe you could imply some darker meanings to. this this story, Dan Curtis was not afraid to put a story that involved, the death of children, on this show. And, it wasn't like an instant death. It was, burning to death, that a mother would kill her own child and have them burned to death. And I thought that was very daring of Dan Curtis to, be that bold in such a time where TV was heavily censored, to put something like this out there. And what a great story it was.
I think Dan Curtis took a great risk, but
Yeah,
he knew, hey, I got nothing to lose. You know what I mean? And I think
right.
that Dan Curtis had Dan Curtis had a lot of balls. You know,
Yeah,
he
he did.
just I don't think we'll ever see anybody take the chances a Dan Curtis took, at least from a television standpoint, from his
Right,
time. In his time, he took. You're right. The censorship now is a joke. You know what I mean?
right, of course.
But the censorship during Curtis's era, I agree with you. It was so heavily filtered, and the fact that he got that, on television, where just to
On
talk
day,
about a kid being burned alive, you know what I mean, was
right.
holy shit.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And on daytime television, too. And,
Right.
I thought it was, I thought that's such a good story. And he was such a great risk taker to tell a story like that. And I loved how um, you get to see Roger break as well.
Mm-hmm.
As horrible as Roger was in those episodes, um, when he realizes that Laura is gone and that she tried to kill David, you see there's this one pivotal scene that I loved. It's my favorite moment with Roger throughout the whole series. He pours himself a glass and he sets it down, and you can see him tear up, and he goes to go see David. And it's just like he's set everything else aside, and all he cares about is David. You can see that he really loved him and cared about him all along. And that was such a good ending to that story.
It was. It lets you know that Roger's a human being at heart. It does. I
Right.
agree with you that Roger finally, in many ways, in the Phoenix arc, Roger becomes the father he always meant to be. You know what I mean? That
Mm-hmm.
he maybe even wanted to be at heart. And I think that Lewis Edmonds just, again, another great actor playing this a great character in this series.
Yeah.
Excuse me, but eh, just an amazing job by him. I agree with you. Just how he ended it, how they ended it, that series. It was, again, the beginning, the middle, the end of it. It's perfection to a T.
Yes, I love those beginning episodes. And when I got my coffin set, I debated because I hadn't seen the beginning episodes yet, and I um, I debated whether or not to, because I was just so excited to get them and to start, that I could watch the show anytime that I wanted. And I was thinking, well, I wonder if I'm just going to go ahead and skip to what I know when Barnabas arrives. And my wife, who was just my girlfriend at the time, said, "You don't know what you're missing if you skip over those beginning episodes. They were great." And I said, "Really?" I said, "You think I should start with those and just go from the beginning?" She said, "Absolute best advice she ever gave me."
And
Because I love those beginning episodes, and I probably love them just as much, and sometimes if the mood hits me, a little bit more than the rest of what I've seen. There's just something really special about those episodes, and if you've missed out on them, oh my gosh, please, if you get some time, go and watch these. They're really that good.
absolutely, 1000%. Mark's wife and Mark are 1000% correct. They're worth it, And something I want to touch upon with you with this is Elizabeth and Laura's confrontation, it leads to Laura just going after Elizabeth with a vengeance.
Yeah. Well, Elizabeth had more or less taken her place, and Elizabeth was the one, besides Victoria, I think that was standing in her way most of all of what she wanted to do and the plans that she had. Because I think David listened to her because David was afraid of her. And I think he listened to Elizabeth more.
Yeah, I just think that I agree with you, and I think that the fact that Elizabeth was never going to let anybody take David out of there. It wasn't just Laura.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
I agree with you. To Elizabeth, David was her child now.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Oh goodness! But it was the confrontation, and by God, Joan Bennett just falling down the steps. Not they like snap her like move their fingers in front of her eyes, and she doesn't move them. It's like
Right.
holy shit.
She did. She did well. She did really well.
Yep. Now we're not going to end this video too right now, but is there anything you want to add on before we end the Phoenix arc?
Well, I would like, first of all, to give a happy birthday shout out to our friend John Phillip
Yep.
Benton, the writer of Return of Dark Shadows. So I hope he's really had a good birthday. But I don't want to plug too much, but there was a story that I wrote about Laura Collins, and it's pinned on my Twitter account. If anybody wants to read it, it's about what happened to Laura after she disappeared in 1967, and it gives a little more information on Laura's backstory. My interpretation of her character and what she was, and how she came to be a Phoenix, and it's got something there for everybody. There's a lot of themes about family relationships. There's a lot of horror in there. But yeah, if you want to check it out, it's I really enjoyed writing the story, and you and John helping inspire me to step outside of my comfort zone and put the story out there. I really enjoyed writing it, and I really think people would like reading it if they gave it a shot.
Like reading it. I think they would love reading it. It's very well written, my friend. It is. I think you added a lot of psychology to your story. And anybody that adds the psychology you did, you deserve a lot of praise. You built these characters very well, all of them. And I love how you had a multiple choice ending that was different from
yeah.
what others do. I think you did an amazing job beginning, middle, and end, just like Dan did with his. So the fact that you added such psychology, depth, the characters of Laura, and just everything in between, it was amazing.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. That's really nice of you. I appreciate that a lot.
I mean it, man. You did really great. I loved it, and I know John loved it too. You guys should definitely go check out Mark's story. I'm going to go get it off Twitter and leave a link in the description box when we're all done here. But something I want to talk to you about is what are your thoughts on the teaser trailer for Halloween Kills? Did you see it?
I haven't seen any that's dropped recently.
Okay.
I've seen like I think I've just seen the teaser.
Okay.
Where the fire truck was going by and Laurie Strode was screaming, let it burn," which was pretty darn good. And I think I saw a few pictures of Michael Myers' mask. But I'm really excited to see this. I'm trying to go in as spoiler free as possible, and I'm so scared to watch a trailer because I just don't want to be spoiled. But
I've seen two trailers so far, And the
Okay.
second one has a little more in it. But I told my friend, I told all of my friends after that, I'm not watching any more trailers because I feel the biggest problem with 2018, one of the biggest problems with 2018 was the trailer ruined it for me. Like a lot
Oh,
of
no.
things, were in the trailer. And I get why studios do that, but it just, for me, less is more.
Yeah, yeah. I would be fine with just that teaser trailer where, it was like, what, 30 seconds, maybe
Right.
25, 30. That's all I needed to know was that there was another one coming out and you could see, you could hear the fire trucks and then hear Lori screaming. That was all I needed to know. And I'm sold. They've got my ticket. So, more than once. So I know I'm going to watch it more than once.
I think what I'd love to see from like a Dark Shadows like trailer or
Hmm.
is like you see like the sea like going in and then the waves
Hmm.
crashing against the rocks and then it slowly goes up and there's Widow's Hill and then there's the mansion, you know
Hmm.
but there you see some boy standing on the edge and he's live streaming and you don't see who he's talking to, but he's talking to somebody and he says, I can't take it anymore, I can't take the secrets, the lies, and he live streams himself jumping off Widow's Hill, jumping to his death, and his death causes the events to unfold at Collinwood.
Wow. Oh man, that would be pretty intense. That would be an intense beginning to the show.
It would. I really hope one day we'll get a Dark Shadows trailer and we'll be like all talking about it, right?
Yeah, same, same. I'm hoping that we're going to get. I mean, another film would be okay, but
Right.
I I would really like. I guess if I had a choice between the two, I would like a series more than I would another film. And to be honest, I would like it to start with the Phoenix arc.
Hmm.
Uh, that would be a good starting point.
I wouldn't mind that either, especially, even as a prequel. I think there's many paths Dark Shadows could take to come back. The Phoenix, Chris Jennings, Quentin. There are characters out there that could bring this series back.
Yeah,
And
I,
just, there's no wrong way to bring Dark Shadows back, honestly.
right.
So,
I agree.
sorry.
I
But
just I love it all.
oh, I do too. It's just an amazing, amazing series. Is there anything you want to add before we get out of here, man?
I can't think of anything, and I just want to tell you thank you so much for having me on. I'm sorry it's been so long, but we'll get caught up, and we'll finish out our Star Wars series as well.
I know my wife's like, did you forget about that Star Wars series? I'm like, no. I'm like, Mark's busy. I'm busy. I said, I swear we're gonna still do.
That's right. Yeah, with the holidays and then where I work in the pharmacy, all this mess with the COVID vaccine has like made things just absolutely bug nuts, bonkers. So hopefully, things are going to start normalizing a little bit, and it's going to get a little more routine going forward. So I really look forward to finishing those. And I apologize to you that I haven't been able to do those videos for a little while.
No apologies necessary. I'm not doing them without you. That's just all there is to it.
All right, good deal. We'll get on those soon.
But thank you so much, Mark, for coming on, man. I appreciate it. I know you're busy, and thank you so much. And God bless you, and God bless your family, man.
You too. Thank you so much. Have a great night and Happy New Year.
You too, man. Bye.
All right, bye bye.